On the day my childhood sweetheart got engaged to someone else, I was in an air crash. The one who came to claim my body was Byron, whom I used to call a nuisance. He gave up everything and chose to commit suicide to follow me to the underworld. In my new life, I knocked on Byron's door in the heavy rain. In his astonished eyes, I grabbed the cuff of his sleeve. "Byron, shall we get married?" The man's eyes suddenly turned red, but he coldly shook off my hand. "Is it fun to play tricks on me?" That night, I was shivering with cold in the rain. Byron opened the door with a fierce look on his face, then sighed and pulled me into his arms. "Iris, I'm just like a dog you keep." When I opened my eyes again, I was woken up by the gusts of cool air. I got up and closed the window. It had just entered autumn, and I had gone back to the time before my childhood sweetheart Kaiser got engaged. My cell phone rang several times. It was a message from Kaiser. "Iris, I'm having dinner with Vivian tonight. Why don't you come too? I know you're not happy about it, but I've already decided to marry her. We'll have to meet in the future anyway. I don't want the two most important people in my life to have such a strained relationship. Do me a favor and have dinner with us tonight, okay?" Looking at the messages constantly popping up on my phone, I sneered. In my previous life, I had been devoted to Kaiser wholeheartedly. He had promised me that we would get married after graduating from university. I had never worried that Kaiser would break his promise, because I knew that with our childhood friendship, he would marry me someday. But later, a girl named Vivian appeared in Kaiser's life. She always liked to tease Kaiser and often made him blush. She would also kiss him on the cheek when he was angry and say, "You're so cute." I watched helplessly as Kaiser fell for her step by step. He said that after Vivian showed up, he finally understood what it was like to be in love. He said that she was his light and his salvation. He also said that he would never marry anyone else except Vivian in this life. He forgot all the promises he had made to me and cruelly and resolutely made me accept the reality. In my previous life, on the day he got engaged to Vivian, I was on a business trip in Los Angeles. Hearing the news, I was heartbroken. And the only person who came to claim my body was Byron, whom I used to dislike the most. He rushed to the scene with red eyes. On that day, the plane I was on crashed. At the moment when the plane cabin was falling rapidly, I felt more regret in my heart. I thought that I shouldn't die like this. What was even more unacceptable was that I had sacrificed my life in vain for a man who didn't love me. After I died, my soul had been floating around the place where the plane crashed. The media reported this incident immediately, and the only person who came to claim my body was Byron, whom I used to dislike the most. He rushed to the scene with red eyes. He let his hands dig on the ground until they were bloody and bruised, but he never stopped. Byron kept calling my name. Overwhelmed by grief, he blacked out and passed out. Later, he took pills and committed suicide in his own villa. When he was found, it was already past the best time for rescue. And there was only one sentence written in the suicide note in the study: "Iris, don't be afraid. I'm coming to accompany you." Perhaps Byron's obsession was too deep, and I came back to life again. Feeling the fresh breath of life, I just felt that it had been a long time. This time, I decided to cherish Byron well. This man who was willing to give his life for me before. He loved me so much, but I was blind in my previous life and let him down. Thinking of this, I opened the chat interface on my phone. I replied to Kaiser with a short message. "I don't care who you marry. Don't contact me again in the future." After sending this, I neatly turned off my phone. The sky outside the window had already darkened. At this time, Byron should have already got off work. When I changed my clothes and went out, the weather news was being broadcast on TV. "There will be heavy rainfall in our city starting from 1830 this evening. Please take rain gear when you go out, citizens." I didn't pay attention and casually turned off the TV. When I got off the taxi, a drizzle was just starting to fall. I searched for Byron's address in the villa area according to my memory. In my previous life, I had only heard him mention it once. When I arrived at the door, I swallowed nervously. Then, I raised my hand and rang the doorbell. Even when I heard that Kaiser and Vivian got engaged in my previous life, my heart had never beaten so fast. This was the first time I had come to find Byron after so many years. The doorbell rang several times before there were finally footsteps inside. When the door opened, Byron and I stared at each other. He was wearing a gray set of home clothes, and his black broken hair made him look a bit cute. When he saw that it was me at the door, his eyes flickered. "Iris?" Under his gaze, I gradually blushed. The sky was already pouring with rain, which hit the steps under my feet one after another. I took a deep breath and grabbed the cuff of his sleeve in Byron's astonished eyes. "Byron, shall we get married?" The air suddenly became quiet. Byron's eyes suddenly turned red. He stared at me fixedly, as if trying to read something from my face. After a long while, Byron finally laughed at himself. "Iris, is it fun to play tricks on me?" He turned around to leave, but I pulled him back again. When I met Byron's indifferent eyes, I just felt terribly uncomfortable. So this was what it felt like to be ignored. In the past, I had treated him like this. I used to call Byron a nuisance. I also cried hysterically in front of him and begged him not to appear in my life again. At that time, Byron must have felt very sad too. But I was still foolishly sad for Kaiser and focused all my attention on another man. I really deserved to die. Thinking of this, my eyes became more determined. "Byron, I know you don't believe me now. But I'm sincere about getting married. I want to be with you." Byron's eyes deepened, and he lowered his eyelids. At the moment when he closed the door, I heard Byron's cold voice. "It's raining. Go back early." I was thus shut outside the door by Byron. The heavy rain was roaring and hitting me as if to show its might. I tried my best to move a little inside, but half of my body was still soaked. In the early autumn weather, the rain was cold. I stood there without moving a step. After closing the door, Byron forced himself to continue working in the study. He had already stayed up for 2 days. This project had reached the final stage, and he had to keep an eye on it. But the woman outside the door made him so distracted that he couldn't concentrate. She suddenly came to him today and even said she wanted to get married, which really startled him. In the past, such words would never have come out of Iris's mouth. Byron once thought that he was lovesick and had hallucinations. But seeing her determined eyes, Byron couldn't help but be moved. He hardened his heart and forced himself not to care about her. 10 minutes passed. The surveillance on the computer showed that she hadn't left yet. She was already shivering with cold, but she was still stubbornly waiting for him to come out. She was really persistent. Byron shook his head helplessly and finally softened his heart. He went to the bathroom and took a clean large towel and walked quickly to the entrance. And I, who was standing at the door, was shivering all over with cold. Just when I thought Byron wouldn't pay attention to me anymore, the door opened. A clean towel quickly blocked my sight. Then, I felt myself being pulled into a warm embrace. Byron's hoarse voice rang in my ear. "Iris, I'm just like a dog you keep. Even though I decided never to like you again, I can't control my heart." My heart trembled violently, and I opened my mouth to say something. The next second, I was picked up horizontally by the man, and the rain curtain was shut outside the door. Byron put me on the wash basin in the bathroom. His eyes were cold. "Take a bath first." After saying that, he went to the bedroom and took a set of men's pajamas for me. "They're new and haven't been worn. Come out quickly after you're done." Looking at him busy here and there, I nodded obediently. Byron closed the bathroom door. I looked at the furnishings in the bathroom. Obviously no woman had ever been here before. This realization made me inexplicably happy. When I dried my hair and walked out, Byron was sitting in the study looking through materials. When he saw me come out, he waved to me to come over. "Drink this." Byron raised his hand and handed me the prepared ganmaling, a kind of cold medicine. The cup was still warm, and I drank it all in one gulp. When dealing with me, Byron always had endless patience. Why couldn't I see his kindness before? Come to think of it, this was the first time I had seen Byron working seriously. He was completely different from what I remembered. I hesitated for a moment, thinking that maybe I shouldn't disturb him for now. When I was about to walk towards the living room, Byron called me back. Were you serious about what you just said? I turned around and found that Byron was also looking at me. His black eyes showed no emotion. Yes, I was serious. I replied like this. After I said that, his eyelashes trembled. Feeling the hesitation coming from Byron, my heart ached. The next second, I walked to Byron's side. In his bewildered eyes, I held his hand tightly. Every word I said today is sincere. Byron, I want to marry you. Is that okay? This was the first time I had proposed to a man, and I was inexplicably nervous in my heart. Even my eyes looking at Byron were a bit cautious. His peach blossom eyes fell on me, as if he was afraid that all of this was just an illusion. Iris, prove it to me. Prove that you're willing to marry me. How do you want me to prove it? After saying that, the man's Adam's apple bobbed. Kiss me. I didn't say anything and just looked at Byron quietly. There was possessiveness towards me in his eyes, as well as a trace of fear. He was panicked, afraid that I was just on a whim. The next second, without thinking, I bent down and kissed his lips. Just as I expected, Byron's lips were soft and nice to kiss. It seemed that he couldn't believe it when he felt my initiative. When I kissed him further, he took a step back gently. Whenever he took a step back, I would pursue without hesitation. After feeling my determination, Byron sighed softly and took the initiative instead. He pulled me onto his lap, and a flood of kisses fell. Late at night, emotions ran high. Byron carried me to the bedroom. His hoarse voice was especially sexy in the late night. Iris, it's still not too late for you to regret it. I didn't say anything and just gently unbuttoned his clothes. I showed Byron with my actual actions that I didn't regret it. His eyes were filled with strong possessiveness. Iris, I will surely die in your arms. I buried my face in his arms shyly. After some tossing and turning, I finally fell asleep from exhaustion. The next morning when I woke up, Byron was already gone. I walked into the living room and saw the prepared breakfast on the dining table. There was a pink sticky note stuck on it. Iris, remember to have breakfast when you get up. I have an important meeting this morning. I'll come to pick you up after it's over, and then we'll go to get the marriage certificate. Seeing the words, get the marriage certificate, I couldn't help blushing. Byron was really efficient. He was so decisive about getting married without any hesitation or delay. I sat down in a good mood and ate the fried eggs Byron made for me. Whenever I thought of him, I gently curved the corners of my lips. Taking advantage of the early time, I hailed a taxi and went straight home. This house was bought by me a few years ago. Although it wasn't big, it still counted as having a home in this city. When I went downstairs with my documents, Byron was sitting in the car waiting for me. I'll ask the moving company to move all your things to my place later. He skillfully fastened my seat belt for me with an unquestionable tone. Seeing that I nodded in agreement, Byron chuckled softly. Suddenly, he leaned closer, his charming eyes looking at me. Are you ready to be Mrs. Byron? My heart skipped a beat. Why hadn't I noticed before that Byron liked to tease people so much? I pursed my lips and without hesitation kissed Byron on the lips. The man's smile suddenly froze, and a suspicious blush appeared on his fair face. Byron coughed softly twice and then went back to his seat. In the passenger seat, my smile grew wider. A pure-hearted person like Byron was really easy to handle. After going through a series of procedures, Byron seemed to finally feel relieved. He held my hand and kept calling me wife patiently. I also responded to him again and again. Byron's eyes went from being delighted to turning red. At the moment when he shed tears, he passionately kissed my lips. From now on, you're mine. Iris, do you know how happy I am? Do you know how happy I am? I know. During those countless gloomy days, he had been silently watching me from behind. Watching me cry, watching me laugh, watching me chase after another man. Now it's my turn to love him well. Late at night, after I took a shower and came out, I turned on my mobile phone. There were dozens of missed calls, all from Kaiser. The latest message was just sent. Iris, are you avoiding me? Tell me where you are now. I rubbed my forehead with a headache and planned to tell him about my marriage. Footsteps came from behind me, and Byron picked me up horizontally. I exclaimed in surprise, and my mobile phone accidentally fell on the bed. The man chuckled softly and didn't care. "Darling, it's late at night. It's time to go to bed." The next second, his lips covered mine. Byron seemed especially eager tonight. The words I was about to say were swallowed up in this kiss. While we were being affectionate, the clear ringtone of the mobile phone rang throughout the bedroom. Byron seemed to ignore it and kissed me even more deeply. I was a bit anxious and wanted to answer the phone. However, Byron domineeringly pinched my chin and forced me to accept him. "Iris, focus, But the ringtone rang and stopped and rang again. It seemed that it would keep ringing if I didn't answer it. After a long while, Byron cursed softly. With a dissatisfied look on his face, he picked up my mobile phone from the end of the bed. When he saw the two words, Kaiser, Byron's face darkened. His tone was much colder than before. "It's for you." I looked at Byron and still pressed the answer button. The voice on the other end of the phone was even more eager than I had imagined. "Iris, I know you're angry with me. Please don't be angry anymore, okay? I haven't been able to contact you for the past 2 days. I'm so worried. Are you at home? Can I go to find you now?" I pursed my lips. "No need. I'm not at home now." Kaiser immediately replied, "It's so late. Where else can you be if you're not at home?" "I'm at Byron's place." Suddenly the air became quiet. Kaiser's incredulous voice came from the receiver. "How could you?" Before I could say anything, I felt that the air around me had become several degrees colder. Byron slightly raised his eyes and said faintly, "Iris, didn't you tell him that we're already married?" Looking at Byron's slightly disappointed eyes, my heart tightened. Subconsciously, I wanted to explain to Byron, "No, I was just about to tell him." Not hearing my response, Kaiser kept calling me on the other end of the phone. Byron's eyes darkened and without hesitation, he kissed my slightly parted lips. "Iris, let me tell him. How to hit a rival in love. Let me show you." Kaiser had been very anxious before. He had imagined 10,000 reasons that he couldn't accept. Why was Iris at Byron's place late at night? But when he heard the slight gasping sound on the other end of the phone, Kaiser felt as if he had been struck by lightning. At that moment, Kaiser felt that his world had collapsed. He used to think that as long as he turned back, Iris would always be waiting for him in the same place. But now, she was in the arms of another man. She didn't like him anymore. This realization made Kaiser tremble all over, and his blood seemed to freeze in one place. The next second, he heard Byron's voice on the other end of the phone. "Remember next time, don't disturb our married life late at night." "Kaiser, don't you have a wife of your own?" After saying this, Byron hung up the phone resolutely. While Kaiser was still in a long state of shock. Iris and Byron got married? Impossible, it couldn't be. Iris used to dislike Byron so much. She clearly felt disgusted even just looking at Byron. Why would she marry him now? The more Kaiser thought about it, the more upset he became. So he simply swept all the things on the table onto the floor, in the bedroom of the villa. After a while of commotion, Byron held me in his arms without saying a word. I felt a bit flustered and still propped myself up to look at him. There was an emotion in Byron's eyes that I couldn't understand. I leaned over and slowly smoothed his furrowed brows. "Byron, are you unhappy?" The man's eyes moved slightly, and his hand around my waist tightened. "Iris, you still like Kaiser, right?" With Byron's words, my eyes suddenly turned red. "No, I really don't like him anymore. I was just about to tell him, but you interrupted me. Byron, the person in my heart now is you." Byron looked at me. After a long while, he finally smiled. "Okay, I know." The more he was like this, the more flustered I felt. I would rather Byron scolded me or vented his emotions on me. Unfortunately, he didn't. I stepped forward and hugged his neck. "Honey, please believe me, okay?" With my gentle words, Byron still couldn't resist this kind of attack. He hugged me affectionately. "I believe you. Iris, I just care about you too much. I greedily hope that you'll always be mine alone." With red eyes, he gently kissed my hand as if cherishing it. I know all of it. His fears and his vulnerabilities were all laid bare in front of me. What I could do was to give him a sense of security. My married life with Byron was happier than I had imagined. He never had any contact with the opposite sex and had a perfect sense of propriety. Even a small word from me, he would take it to heart. My friends all said that I was really lucky to have such a husband. So much so that I watched Byron busy in the kitchen wearing an apron and suddenly had an unreal feeling. I walked into the kitchen and hugged Byron from behind. He paused while cutting vegetables and then chuckled softly again. You seem to be especially clingy to me these 2 days. After saying that, the corners of his lips lifted slightly. It's a good thing. I tightened my hands around Byron's waist, feeling a bit distressed. If this can make you happy, then I'll do more in the future. Byron's back stiffened for a moment and then he turned around. His eyes darkened and his charming eyes stared at me. Really? Will you love me more and more? Byron was like a cautious child at this moment, with a hint of ingratiation. I hugged his neck and tiptoed to plant a kiss on his forehead. Yes. Byron, I'll love you more and more. Byron's eyes darkened, and a gentle kiss fell. The room was filled with tenderness. On Friday night, Byron was out for socializing. I originally planned to go home, take a shower, watch TV shows and wait for Byron to come back. Unexpectedly, I received an invitation to a high school reunion when I got off work. This reunion was initiated by our high school monitor. When I arrived at the dining place, Kaiser was standing at the door waiting for me. Seeing me coming, he looked delighted. I didn't plan to pay attention to him and walked straight past him. Unexpectedly, Kaiser eagerly grabbed my arm. Iris, did you really marry Byron? Tell me, it's fake, right? You clearly hated Byron the most when you were in high school. How could you marry him? Kaiser's words sounded like an interrogation and also like he was talking to himself. He had a forced smile on his face, looking forward to my answer. I shook off his hand and took a step back. Do you think I have any reason to lie to you? Why? Because I love him. After saying that, I saw Kaiser's eyes turn red instantly. Impossible, you can't love him. You clearly said that you would marry me after graduating from university. Iris, look at me. The person you love is me, right? Kaiser was so angry that his eyes were almost popping out, and he tightly grasped my shoulders. I frowned in pain, and then Kaiser seemed to wake up from a dream and let me go. Kaiser, who was the first to break our vow? Do I need to say more? Didn't the fact that you were going to marry Vivian ever happen? Or do you want both me and Vivian? I'm telling you, you'd better give up this idea. Seeing that my tone was firm, he hesitated to speak. I glanced at him and walked forward. But then Kaiser's voice came from behind me. I've broken up with Vivian. I was so confused before that I hurt your heart. Iris, I regret it now. Can you divorce Byron and let's get back together? I sneered and didn't stop walking. Why did Kaiser think that as long as he turned back, I would always be waiting for him in the same place? Everything he was doing now was just because of that ridiculous possessiveness. When I loved him wholeheartedly, he took it for granted and thus could love others passionately. When I turned around and married Byron, Kaiser couldn't bear it. He couldn't stand others invading his territory and taking away what he regarded as his. To put it bluntly, in Kaiser's eyes, I was just an indispensable object. However, Byron was loving me with everything he had. He was fragile and sensitive. I would never hurt him again for Kaiser's sake. I first met Byron in the second year of high school. After school, I helped the teacher grade the test papers. When I came out of the teaching building, the sunset glow in the sky was just beautiful. And over by the basketball court, there was a dirty teenager standing there. He looked as wretched as a stray dog on the roadside, with his eyes downcast as his father was scolding him. I paused in my steps. Although we were far away, the middle-aged man's curses were really unpleasant to hear. The teenager had an indifferent look on his face and didn't even lift his eyelids. The next second, the middle-aged man slapped the teenager hard on the face. You little bastard. Don't think that just because your mother is gone, you can do whatever you want. If you cause trouble at school again, I won't let you off." After saying that, the middle-aged man quickly disappeared from my sight. As far as I could see, the teenager crouched down and huddled up. I didn't say anything and walked quickly towards the school gate. With every step I took, it felt like something was calling me from behind. I grasped the shoulder straps of my school bag tightly and finally stopped. I walked up to the teenager and handed him a clean handkerchief. "There's blood at the corner of your mouth. Are you okay?" At that time, Byron looked up at me for the first time. I was stunned for a moment. Those were a pair of very clean and clear eyes. He took the handkerchief and said thank you. Later, I learned that Byron's mother had passed away when he was very young. He was extremely rebellious during his adolescence and even refused to let anyone enter his world. Even so, every time Byron was asked to have his parents come to school, his father would still rush to the school in a hurry and lower his head to apologize to the teacher. Since then, I had a little tail following me that I couldn't get rid of. Byron would always follow me silently and send me home. He would also step forward to fight for me when I was bullied. During that period, rumors spread all over the school that Byron liked me. Finally, I couldn't bear it anymore. One time, I stopped Byron in the dead of night. "What exactly do you want? Just tell me straight." At that time, Byron gave a soft laugh with bitterness in his smile. "Iris, all I've ever wanted is you. What about you? Can you give it to me?" That day, I scolded Byron harshly, calling him a pervert. I cried and begged him not to follow me anymore and not to appear in my world again. I said, "Byron, you really disgust me." During our eye contact, the light in Byron's eyes gradually died out. Later, I started to avoid him and tried my best to create opportunities to be with Kaiser. However, Byron's presence was so strong that even Kaiser couldn't ignore it. So Kaiser promised me that we would get married right after graduation. At that time, I looked at Byron hidden in the light and shadow. Very deliberately, I loudly agreed to Kaiser. And Byron never showed up in front of me again after that. Coming out of my memories, I was already standing at the door of the private room. When I pushed the door open and went in, the scene was very lively. Kaiser and I went in one after another, and everyone greeted me warmly. My former deskmate Arya pulled me over to sit down. Everyone was chatting away, mostly just making polite small talk. "Iris, you've been really low-key these years. You didn't come to any of our reunions." "Yeah, come and hang out with us more often. We're all old classmates." I gave a soft laugh. "I'm busy with work." If Arya hadn't kept urging me this time, I definitely wouldn't have come. I had never liked such occasions. Since entering the private room, Kaiser had been chatting with the monitor. His gaze fell on me from time to time, which made me a bit uncomfortable. After sitting for about 10 minutes, I picked up my handbag and went out to the washroom. While I was touching up my makeup, my cell phone rang with a message. "Byron, Iris, are you having a gathering near your company?" How do you know?" I also sent Byron a little confused emoji. He replied quickly, "I installed a positioning system on your phone." I twitched the corners of my mouth. This man really wanted to keep track of my whereabouts all the time. When I returned to the private room, they were playing Truth or Dare. I sat next to Arya and watched them having fun. Unexpectedly, the mouth of the bottle on the table suddenly pointed at me the next second. Someone in the crowd asked, "Truth or Dare?" I pursed my lips and still chose Dare. A few active classmates immediately got excited. "Well, you and Kaiser stand face to face, put your hands around his neck. Tell him cheesy love words and gently kiss his cheek affectionately." After saying that, a chorus of jeering voices rang out. Everyone was looking at me and Kaiser with mischievous smiles on their faces. Especially those who usually got along well with Kaiser, the meaning in their eyes was even more obvious. I frowned and immediately refused. "Let's change it. I really can't do this one." Kaiser's smile froze at the corners of his mouth. "Even for a game, do you have to resist me like this?" I didn't say anything, and everyone started to persuade me one after another. "Come on, don't be such a spoilsport, Iris. Hey, didn't you and Kaiser used to be together?" "Yeah, I also remember that you and Kaiser had a good relationship back then. Did you break up? Come on, it's just a kiss on the cheek. There's no need to be such a wet blanket. Among the voices mocking me, there were also quite a few girls in the class. Arya was indignant for me. Isn't it a bit too much for you to say that? What if Iris is married now? Aren't you ruining someone else's family by making such a fuss? One of the girls rolled her eyes. You also said, what if? What if she isn't married? Arya was so angry that her face turned red and her neck thick. I patted her hand soothingly and looked at everyone. I'm married. My husband is rather sensitive. He'll be unhappy if I do this. After saying that, all the eyes in the private room focused on me. Kaiser's face turned red and then pale. He got up angrily and suddenly pulled me up. Then he leaned close to my ear. Iris, do you have to embarrass me in front of so many people? I was stunned for a moment. Then Kaiser took my hands and put them around his neck. I struggled, but he held my hands even tighter. Just when I was getting angry and embarrassed, the door of the private room was suddenly opened. Byron stood at the door with a murderous look on his face, his eyes fixed on me and Kaiser. Who the hell are you? Someone in the crowd looked at Byron with an unhappy expression. The next second, Byron gave him a cold look. That look was so intimidating. The originally noisy private room suddenly became quiet. Byron took long strides, walked over and pulled me into his arms. He touched my slightly reddened wrists with distress. Does it hurt? I shook my head and smiled at Byron. He brushed the broken hair in front of my forehead. I'm not in a good temper. My biggest shortcoming is being overprotective of my wife. Iris is a married woman now. Please be careful with your behavior when socializing in the future. If you offend my wife again, I'll make you know the consequences. Byron spoke, but his eyes were looking at Kaiser. The gazes of the two men met in the air. Under Byron's extremely intimidating presence, Kaiser still moved his gaze away in embarrassment. After saying that, Byron took my hand and left the private room straight away. Sitting in the passenger seat, I nervously grasped the seat belt. Although Byron didn't show much expression on his face, he was driving very fast. I wanted to say something, but in the end, I was scared back by his gloomy face. Late at night, Byron held me tightly in his arms. He tucked the quilt around me to make sure I wouldn't catch a cold. I sniffed. Byron, I want to talk to you about what happened tonight. It's okay. Go to sleep. My words were gently interrupted. Byron kissed my forehead, his voice flat. I still wanted to say something, but already there was the sound of even breathing coming from above my head. Well, I'd better talk about it tomorrow. I had a very long dream. In the dream, there was always a man chasing me. When I woke up scared, I subconsciously touched the side. But when I touched the cold quilt, I woke up instantly. Byron wasn't beside me. I panicked. I put on my slippers and hurriedly opened the bedroom door. When I found Byron, he was sitting alone in the audiovisual room. There was no light on inside, and even the movie playing was on mute. I groped to turn on the light and saw the wretched and pitiful Byron at a glance. He was sitting obediently on the carpet. It seemed that he had maintained this posture for a long time. When he looked at me, his eyes were completely bloodshot. My heart ached sharply, and I walked over quickly. Can't sleep? Byron looked up at me, his voice a bit hoarse. Yeah. Then why didn't you turn on the sound? I was afraid of disturbing you. I lowered my eyelids and took Byron's hand. In the past, Byron's big hands were always warm and dry. Tonight, his hands were especially cold. I felt sorry for him and took a blanket from the sofa and put it over him. Next time you can't sleep, be sure to call me. Shall I keep you company? Byron nodded obediently. Okay. Iris, as long as it's what you say, I'll do it. He pulled me into his arms. However, his shoulders were shaking slightly. Byron, is there something you want to tell me? I leaned on his shoulder and patiently coaxed him. I had known for a long time that Byron had a serious paranoid disorder. Once he included someone in his territory, he wouldn't let go easily. After a long while, Byron's trembling voice rang out, Iris, I'm sorry. Although I know there's nothing between you and Kaiser, I still can't help but feel irritable. Even just seeing you two standing together, I find it unbearable. Before I got you, I used to think that as long as you were willing to be with me, I'd be willing to do anything. Later, you married me, but I'm greedy for your heart. I want your body and heart to belong to me completely. I know I'm being greedy like this, but I really can't control myself from loving you. Every day I want more than before, wanting you not to talk to any other man in the world. I'm really afraid that this sick kind of love will scare you. After saying that, Byron choked up. His tears fell on my shoulder, burning my heart. Byron had always been a sensitive child. He lived in a gloomy world. He would be afraid of losing me and afraid of scaring me. Even though he was so unhappy about what happened tonight, he didn't have the heart to blame me even once. Such a Byron really made my heart ache. I withdrew from his embrace and gently wiped away Byron's tears. He looked at me cautiously, as if he were a child who had done something wrong. Iris, please don't leave me, okay? In my impression, even when Byron was slapped by his father, he had never cried. Such a man was so vulnerable that he shed tears in front of me. I looked at him and kissed his lips without hesitation. Byron was stunned for a moment and then opened his lips to let me deepen the kiss. After the kiss ended, I smoothed Byron's messy hair. Byron, actually you could have told me. Whatever it is, whether you're happy or not, I hope you can share it with me. Since the day I came to you, I was destined to be with you for the rest of my life. I won't give this kind of feeling to anyone else. So, you can ask me again and again. I'll respond to you patiently. I love you very much. After saying that, Byron's tears fell even more fiercely. He pulled me into his arms all at once. Iris, don't lie to me. If you lie to me, I'll really go crazy. In the end, it was hard to tell who kissed whom first. Byron just eagerly kissed my lips. It seemed that only by possessing me so intensely could it prove that I loved him. An hour later, Byron carried me to the bathroom for a bath. I was already extremely sleepy. But he was still kissing my lips enthusiastically. Iris, do you love me? At the same time, even though I was so sleepy that I could hardly keep my eyes open, I still managed to cooperate and said, Byron, I love you so much. Having got the answer, Byron carried me back to the room. He continued to hold me contentedly and fell asleep. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, Byron and I had already got our marriage certificate for more than half a year. Recently, I often felt a bit nauseous. When my period didn't come as expected, Byron took me to have an examination. When the results came out, a kind middle-aged female doctor was sitting in front of us. Congratulations! You're pregnant. You're 4 weeks pregnant and the baby is growing very healthily now. Byron and I looked at each other. I could read the deep joy in his eyes. Being a father for the first time, Byron took care of every detail. He patiently asked the doctor about taboos for pregnant women. To take better care of me, Byron hired an aunt. Most of the time, he worked from home. Even my nutritious meals were cooked by Byron himself. During the 2 months when my morning sickness was the worst, Byron lost more weight than I did. If it had to be said, Byron was almost a perfect husband. Seeing that I had a hard time during pregnancy, he hugged me affectionately. This is the only one. We won't have any more children in the future. I couldn't help laughing and touched his head. Honey, do you want a boy or a girl? At that time, he gently held me in his arms. Either a boy or a girl is fine. As long as it's your baby, I'll like it. I smiled and didn't expose his true thoughts. Last time when we went to buy a crib, Byron bought a whole bunch of little girls' dresses. I was going to return them at that time, but Byron refused to let me do it no matter what. We don't know the gender of the baby yet. What if we can't use them then? It's okay. Just keep them as souvenirs. Several months later, the baby belonging to Byron and me was finally born. It was a girl. The moment I came out of the delivery room, Byron's eyes were red from crying. He kissed my sweaty forehead. Iris, you've worked hard. He named our baby Chinsonyu. He said that our daughter must look more like me. Many, many years later, I leaned against Byron's arms. Why did you like me when we were in high school? Because you were pretty. I laughed and punched Byron's shoulder lightly. Be serious. Byron kissed my forehead. When I was 8 years old, my mother passed away. She was so devastated after finding out that my father had a mistress that she died in a car accident. At that time, I always hated my father and even thought that there was no meaning in living. I was dirty all over, got into gang fights and was idle and lazy. Until later, you appeared in my life, and for the first time, I had the idea of protecting a girl. Everyone was afraid of me, but you chose to approach me regardless of everything. Listening to Byron recalling the past, I let out a gentle sigh. If your mother knew that you're married now and have your own child, she would surely be very happy if she knew it underground. Byron looked at the stars in the sky. Yes, she would be very happy. For a long time after that, Byron just held me quietly. After a long while, he suddenly called me, Iris, thank you for choosing me back then. I moved a little in his arms and looked up at him. Byron, it should be me thanking you. Thank you for loving me for such a long time. From the unexpected encounter at the beginning to the final settlement now, Byron has walked firmly towards me every step of the way. The world is splendid and magnificent. Byron stood in the light and shadow, stretched out his hand towards me, smiling. He said to me, Iris, welcome to my world. The end. I've been chasing Justin for over a decade, but he still doesn't like me. However, due to family pressure, he had no choice but to get engaged to me. Later, he injured his leg in a car accident, and I took good care of him for 2 years. After he recovered, he said in front of everyone that I was a hired caregiver. This time, I didn't take the initiative to coax him like I used to. Instead, I took off the engagement ring and left the Justin family overnight. I don't want Justin anymore, nor do I want this relationship that has been entangled for over 10 years. Justin has a female childhood friend named Stella, who is the darling of their circle. Tonight is her birthday, and Justin specially organized a gathering. I was late because of traffic congestion. At the door of the private room, I heard Stella ask him in a coquettish voice, Brother Justin, why didn't you bring sister-in-law with you tonight? Justin smiled lazily. Don't call her that randomly. I didn't say I would marry her. My hand that was about to push the door stopped instantly. The engagement ring on my middle finger was hurting my knuckles. Someone asked in surprise, really? Justin, isn't your engagement with Evelyn an arranged one since childhood? During the 2 years when you were in a wheelchair after the car accident, she accompanied you to receive treatment abroad as your fiancé and took care of you by your bedside without even taking off her clothes. Why don't you want to marry her now? Justin raised his glass and took a sip of wine, then laughed. She was willing to throw herself at me. I didn't force her to do it. She loves serving people so much. What's the difference between her and a caregiver? Hearing the word caregiver, there were bursts of laughter in the private room. They all gave Justin a thumbs up. When it comes to taming women, it has to be our Justin. Stella bent over with laughter and leaned her head on Justin's shoulder. Actually, I'm really envious of Sister Evelyn. She's beautiful, mature, and good at taking care of people. Unlike me, I'm so silly that I can't even tell sugar from salt. Justin rubbed the top of her head. You're so innocent and lovely. Don't learn from Evelyn. What's the point of throwing yourself at someone? It's really pointless. I didn't push the door open and quietly turned around and left. When I got into the taxi, a message from Justin came in. Why haven't you arrived yet? You're so slow even just to deliver a bottle of wine. Scrolling up, there were 2 more messages, also sent by Justin. At 7 o'clock in the evening, take the second bottle of red wine from the left on the top layer of the wine cabinet at home and deliver it to box 3097 in the Galaxy Bar. Don't take the wrong one. Stella only drinks this brand of red wine. Justin remembered what brand of red wine Stella liked, remembered her menstrual period, but couldn't even remember my birthday. I closed the chat box with Justin and then found my boss Ryan in the friend list. President Ryan, I've thought it over. I'll follow the company's arrangement. Just last week, Ryan talked to me and offered to promote me to be his secretary and work with him at the company's overseas headquarters. Ryan replied instantly. The flight is at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. It's not easy to get a taxi. Give me your address, and I'll pick you up. He also emphasized specifically, it's on my way. But I hadn't even told him my address. How could he know it was on his way? Don't bother. Let's meet at the airport. Above the chat box, it kept showing that the other party was typing. A few minutes later, Ryan said, the temperature will drop tomorrow morning. Remember to put on a coat. The corners of my mouth couldn't help rising. I didn't expect that the usually cold and aloof boss would also care about his employees, but Justin, as my fiancé, had never known to care about me. I turned my head and looked out of the car window. The vehicles on the road were flowing continuously, and the taillights were flashing red and yellow lights, like strings of flowing gems. This was the first time that I didn't reply to Justin's message. And also for the first time, I wanted to break up. Justin came back in the early hours of the morning. When the doorbell rang, I was packing my luggage in the bedroom. I opened the door. The drunk Justin was being supported by Stella. Stella's chest was pressed tightly against Justin's body. Justin's arm was naturally and affectionately around Stella's shoulder. The two of them really looked like a couple in love. Stella put on an act and smiled at me, with a smug look in her eyes. Sister-in-law, don't misunderstand. Tonight is my birthday, and brother Justin was so happy that he drank too much. He usually doesn't drink too much. Oh. I took Justin from Stella's arms, smiling gracefully. Sending him back should have been the driver's job, but the driver happened to ask for leave tonight. Thank you, Stella, for making this trip. It was hard work. Justin has a poor appetite. Please trouble Stella to supervise him and make him drink less in the future. Stella didn't understand the implication of my words and thought I was provoking her. After casually saying a few perfunctory words, she left angrily. Justin was very heavy. I only had enough strength to help him to the sofa. He fell down, casually pulled off his tie, and muttered that he wanted some water. In the past, every time he drank, I would make a bowl of honey water for him, which could sober him up and was good for his stomach. But tonight, I only poured a cup of warm water for him. When I came back from the kitchen, Justin seemed to have fallen asleep again. I put the water cup on the coffee table and pushed his shoulder twice. Justin, I have something to tell you. He frowned tightly and impatiently turned over. Can't I even have a good sleep? If there's anything, we'll talk about it tomorrow. Don't bother me. Justin was always like this, having no patience with me at all. During the 2 years when we were treating his leg abroad, even the nurses in the hospital said, Justin is the most irritable patient I've ever seen. It's really hard on you, Miss Young. You take such good care of him every day. Justin is so lucky to have a girlfriend like you. But in Justin's heart, getting engaged to me wasn't a blessing. Back then, Justin's father and my father were comrades in arms. After retiring from the military, Justin's father went into business, and my father worked as his deputy. Coincidentally, Justin's mother and my mother were pregnant at the same time. They all thought it was a predestined relationship for the two families, so our arranged engagement was set when we were still in our mother's wombs. However, no one expected that my mother would have a difficult childbirth and passed away. A year after my mother left, my father had a sudden myocardial infarction and also passed away. I, who was less than 2 years old, was taken home by Justin's mother and raised by her side as her daughter-in-law. Justin had been more rebellious than others since he was a child, so he hated me very much and always thought that I was the fiancé forced on him. Even though he was completely dependent on me in life. As my thoughts came back, just as I turned around, Justin's mobile phone slipped out of his trouser pocket and fell on the carpet. The screen lit up and it was a WeChat message. During the 2 years we were together, I had never looked through Justin's mobile phone. But tonight, somehow, I unlocked it with his fingerprint. Stella was at the top of his chat list. Just a minute ago, Stella had just sent a message. Brother Justin, it's all my fault. I should have stopped you from drinking. Sister Evelyn was right to scold me. A sad puppy emoji. Please apologize to Sister Evelyn for me. Let's meet less often in the future. I don't want to make her unhappy. A broken heart emoji. I couldn't help but scroll up. 2 weeks ago, Stella complained to Justin. I'm so annoyed, brother Justin. A crying emoji. There's a female colleague in our department. Her boyfriend sends her flowers every week and she shows off to me all day long. She's just bullying me for not having a boyfriend. Don't cry, baby. It's just flowers. I'll order a bouquet for you every day in the future and they won't be the same. Let her envy you. Woohoo, I'm so touched. Sure enough, you're the most reliable, bro. But I clearly remembered that on Valentine's Day last year, when I asked Justin to buy me a bouquet of roses, he said I was being too sentimental. A nameless anger rose from the bottom of my heart, but curiosity drove me to continue scrolling up. Last month, Stella's cat had its birthday. Brother Justin, Meow Meow has its birthday tonight. Shall we accompany it together? Sure, I'll bring your favorite crayfish in the evening. Wait for me. There were also several photos of them below. In the photos, Justin was holding the cat in his arms, and Stella was leaning her head on his shoulder with a smile. Brother Justin, we really look like an old married couple. I think so too. We do look like a couple. I looked at the date on the chat record. It was the 20th of last month. I clearly remembered that it rained heavily that night. I was back from a business trip, and my car broke down and I was trapped on the highway. There were very few vehicles on that section of the road. I was so scared staying alone in the car. After calling the tow truck, I made a video call to Justin. He hung up twice in a row. I sent him a message saying that I was trapped on the highway and was scared and wanted him to chat with me on the video call. He replied to me, if your car breaks down, call the tow truck. What do you want from me? I'm working overtime. Don't call again. So the overtime he mentioned was to accompany Stella's cat on its birthday. Although I had already decided to break up, seeing these still made me feel wronged and tears welled up in my eyes. I marked the messages as unread and put the mobile phone back on the coffee table. At 4 o'clock in the morning, the sky was a deep navy blue, like a huge velvet curtain. After packing my suitcase, I stared blankly at the empty dressing table. All the past events flooded into my mind like a tide. I remembered that in the year when Justin and I were in high school, Justin's father made money from an investment, opened a company, and moved into the large flat we live in now. However, the people in Justin's family didn't become arrogant just because they had money. They still treated me as their own, spent money on my education, and were never stingy. But after all, I was living under someone else's roof, so I had always lived cautiously. To make them happy, I had been trying my best to be nice to Justin since I was a child. I bought him food, helped him with his homework, and took the blame for him. Justin's friends gave me a nickname, Follower Dog. Later, even Justin called me that. The year when Justin's mother was diagnosed with cancer, Justin got engaged to me because it was his mother's last wish. However, less than half a year later, Justin's mother passed away. Justin had a car accident on his way back. Thinking of how Justin's mother held my hand tightly when she was dying and begged me to take care of Justin, I made up my mind to follow Justin abroad and take good care of him until he recovered. Now I don't owe anyone anything. When I dragged my suitcase out of the bedroom, I happened to run into Justin, who was coming out of the bathroom. His hair was messy, and 3 buttons on the front of his shirt were undone. He stared at the suitcase in my hand and frowned tightly. What do you mean? I calmly looked at Justin, took off the engagement ring on my hand, and handed it to him. Justin, we've been entangled for over 10 years. To be honest, it's really meaningless. Let's just stop here and part on good terms. The ceiling light in the corridor brightly shone on Justin's face, magnifying every bit of his drunken exhaustion. After staring at me for a few seconds, Justin suddenly raised his hand and knocked the ring out of my hand. Are you crazy, Evelyn? What are you doing crazy things in the middle of the night? He rubbed his stomach and turned around to walk towards the living room, ordering me as usual, go and make me a bowl of honey water. I want to drink it now. Ask Stella to make it for you. I don't have time. I continued to drag my suitcase towards the door. Justin chased after me, pressed my hand on the luggage handle, and asked in disbelief, "Evelyn, are you serious?" "Yes." "Are you unhappy just because I accompanied Stella to celebrate her birthday last night? So you do know the difference between men and women and that I don't like Stella." I tried to break free from Justin's hand, but instead, he grabbed my wrist tightly. "Evelyn, what on earth are you making a fuss about? I just regard Stella as my sister. If there was anything going to happen between us, it would have happened long ago. It wouldn't be your turn to worry about it. I can't wake up someone who's pretending to be asleep. But a phone call can." On the coffee table, Justin's mobile phone was buzzing constantly. He hesitated for a moment and then let go of me. He turned around to answer the call. The living room was so quiet that you could even hear a pin drop. The moment the call was connected, Stella's sobbing came from the receiver. "Brother Justin, I seem to have a fever. What should I do? You know that I'm an idiot in life. I don't even know what medicine to take. Will I die at home? Could you please take me to the hospital?" Justin coaxed her gently. "Stella, don't be afraid. First, find a thermometer to take your temperature, and then lie down obediently and wait for me to come." My heart felt as if it had been pierced by countless sharp knives. Every breath I took was filled with endless bitterness. In the end, I turned around and left without looking back. After getting out of the elevator and walking through the corridor, the glass door was right in front of me, shaking in the autumn wind. A low-key black Mercedes-Benz S65 was parked across the road. Ryan was leaning casually against the car door, smoking. The smoke curled up, blurring his outline but adding a touch of mystery to him. He was wearing a black fitted trench coat, which outlined his broad shoulders and slender waist, making him look like a character walking out of a movie scene. My hurried steps suddenly stopped. Why was he here? Ryan seemed to sense something. He raised his eyes and his gaze instantly locked onto me. Then, without hesitation, he stubbed out the cigarette butt, took long strides, and walked towards me step by step. The glass door was pushed open from the outside. The cool autumn wind rushed in all at once, blowing away the tears hanging from the corners of my eyes. Ryan's eyes were fixed tightly on me, with a hint of complexity flashing in them. He didn't ask why my eyes were red. Nor did he explain why he was here. He simply and straightforwardly took my suitcase from my hand, put his other arm gently around my shoulder, and walked out with me. By the time Justin chased after us, I was already in the car. He stood across the road and shouted at me, "Evelyn, if you dare to leave with him today, don't ever come back." Ryan casually rested one hand on the steering wheel, and his black hair fluttered gently in the breeze. He turned his head slightly, and his cold gaze fell on Justin. Justin straightened his back and stared back at Ryan tightly, with a look of unwillingness and stubbornness in his eyes. "Evelyn, I'll count to 3. Get the hell out of the car right now. Do you hear me? Otherwise, you'll never marry me in your life." I glanced at the shouting Justin and closed the car window directly. "President Ryan, let's go." Outside the huge floor-to-ceiling windows of the airport, planes were taking off and landing, making bursts of roaring sounds. I was sitting alone on the sofa in the business lounge, blocking all of Justin's contact information. Then a strange number called in. After answering it, I found out it was Stella. She sobbed and apologized to me. "Sister-in-law, please don't be angry with Brother Justin, okay? I'm really sick." Brother Justin rushed over because he was worried about me. "If I had known beforehand that you two would quarrel because of me, I would rather die of illness than bother Brother Justin. It's all my fault, sister-in-law. I made you two quarrel. I really want to die." I sneered. "People who really want to die don't have so much nonsense." In the receiver, Stella's crying stopped instantly. Apparently not expecting me to say that, she was obviously stunned for several seconds and then she cried even louder, constantly apologizing to me. The phone was snatched away by Justin. "Evelyn, are you fucking crazy?" "Stella." Before he could finish speaking, I hung up directly, then I blocked Stella's number as well. I didn't know when Ryan came back. When I looked up, he was already standing in front of me. He casually put one hand in his pocket and handed me a coffee with the other hand. Americano. The sunlight shone through the huge glass window onto Ryan, outlining a golden halo around his outline. I reached out to take it. Thank you, President Ryan. Ryan's gaze was calm and imposing, but his tone was casual. We're not at the company. There's no need to keep calling me President Ryan. Just call me Ryan. He sat down beside me, and the sofa sank a bit. Actually, few people knew that Ryan was my senior at university, 2 years older than me. Moreover, we had a life-saving friendship. When we were in university, we were both members of the finance club. He was the president, and I was a member. During that team-building mountain climbing activity, I got lost and sprained my ankle. In the middle of the night, when I was almost in despair, it was Ryan who found me. He held a flashlight in his mouth, carried me on his back with one hand, and leaned on a crutch with the other hand, walking from dark to dawn, leaving footprints one deep and one shallow as he went down the mountain. In the year when I graduated from university, Justin's mother passed away. I accompanied Justin to go abroad for 2 years to treat his leg. My contact with Ryan was only simple greetings during festivals. Reunion was an accident. It was after I returned to China and went for an interview at a new company that I happened to meet Ryan, who was surrounded by people like the moon among the stars, in the elevator. I didn't expect that in just a few years, he had become an executive in a venture capital company. As my thoughts came back, I tightened my fingers around the coffee cup. I turned to look at Ryan. Actually, there's always something I've wanted to ask you. When I applied for a job at the company, I was neither a fresh graduate nor had any work experience, but you hired me exceptionally. Why? Ryan curled his lips, and his tone was either humorous or serious. You're the only one in the whole university who defeated me in a debate competition. How could I let such an outstanding talent go? But back then, Ryan was a well-known undefeated champion in the school. No one could beat him in a debate competition. Even in the provincial college students' debate competition, he always won first place. I pursed my lips. Did you deliberately let me win that match? Ryan turned his face to look at me, curling up the corner of his mouth on one side. Guess. The airport broadcast reminded passengers to board at the boarding gate. Ryan stood up and left. I didn't have time to think carefully and quickly followed him in small steps. Ryan's appointment to the headquarters didn't go as smoothly as expected. The assessment by the board of directors was very strict. They required him to win back the company's lost major client, Maverick, within 1 month in order to become a senior partner smoothly. However, Maverick was notoriously difficult to deal with in the industry and had a very tense relationship with the company before. We made several appointments, but we never managed to meet Maverick. I also found out that Maverick was currently in contact with other venture capital companies, and both sides already had the intention to cooperate. To meet Maverick, Ryan took me to an industry summit. We drank a lot of wine, but we didn't get to meet him. Seeing that I was drunk, Ryan took me away early. In the elevator, I was so dizzy that I could hardly stand steadily. Ryan held my bag in one hand and supported my waist with the other, letting me lean completely against him. His tired eyes looked at me a bit helplessly. Why did you drink so much tonight? This isn't your usual style. I raised my eyes and met Ryan's gaze. I told him very proudly that the wine wasn't drunk in vain. I had found out from the wives' circle that 3 days later, Mrs. Maverick would bring her 7-year-old son to participate in an equestrian competition. It was said in the wives' circle that Maverick was henpecked. Since we couldn't meet Maverick, we should start from his wife. I spoke in a serious tone. Ryan, I know that some people in the company's senior management don't like you. They've joined forces to set up this dead end of Maverick for you, trying to force you out. But I want to help you break through this situation together. A man who was 28 years old, had no family background, and became famous in the venture capital industry in just a few years shouldn't be buried by capital. Ryan swallowed with his Adam's apple moving slightly. His drooping eyes narrowed slightly with thick clouds and heavy fog in his eyes. Behind him, the numbers above the elevator door were about to jump to the first floor, and suddenly an ambiguous atmosphere emerged in the air. With a ding, the elevator door opened slowly. The oncoming cold air made me shiver slightly. Ryan took off his suit jacket and put it on my shoulders. His strong arm tightened around my shoulders and he led me all the way through the magnificent hall and out through the golden revolving door. Outside, the street lamps were dim, and the leaves were rustling. Ryan took me into the passenger seat of the Bentley. He bent down to help me fasten my seatbelt. The space inside the car was narrow, and we were so close. The faint smell of tobacco on Ryan was clearly lingering around my nose. My heartbeat unconsciously quickened. With a click, the buckles sounded particularly crisp in the quiet compartment. When Ryan turned his head, whether intentionally or unintentionally, the tip of his nose brushed against my flushed cheek, and our gazes met. Time seemed to stop at this moment. Only the faint light on the roadside and our breathing intertwined, telling this indescribable ambiguous feeling. I suddenly felt my mouth go dry and I panicked and looked away, but Ryan grabbed my wrist tightly. Suddenly, he called my name in a low voice, Evelyn. My heart was like an ancient string being accidentally plucked. His eyes were deep and obscure, and his voice had a grainy texture. Close your eyes. I felt my face getting hot again and again, and my eyelashes were trembling violently. The next second, Ryan kissed me almost fiercely. The moonlight poured in through the car window. Ryan's face was half bright and half in shadow, his thumb domineeringly pressed against the inside of my wrist, suppressing the blue vein's pulse. I managed to keep my back straight with difficulty. My wrist bone was almost crushed, and I wanted to struggle. Ryan, my wrist hurts. Only then did he reluctantly let go of me. His broad palm cupped the back of my neck with our noses touching each other. Our breaths mingled. Ryan tried his best to restrain himself and didn't kiss me again. Sorry, I lost control. The heat in my heart burned all the way to my face. I lowered my eyes and didn't dare to look directly at him. But Evelyn, I'm very clear about what I'm doing. Ryan's Adam's apple moved slightly, and his voice was hoarse. I've never been impulsive about you. It's been premeditated for a long time. So Evelyn, you can think about it. I held my breath and looked up at him. Think about what? His gaze was focused and affectionate, and the passion in his eyes reached straight to my heart. Think about marrying me. Ryan's sudden confession threw my heart into chaos. I tossed and turned in bed all night and couldn't fall asleep no matter what. When I was browsing my phone, a hot search topic on Weibo caught my attention. Hashtag newcomer Stella in the entertainment circle selected into the top 20 in the country hashtag. In the past half month, I had been so busy with work that I hardly paid attention to entertainment news. Unable to resist my curiosity, I casually clicked on that hot search topic. To my surprise, Stella had transformed into the new darling of the domestic entertainment circle. She participated in a talent show variety show and was the most popular contestant in it. The comment section under the hot search was full of all kinds of remarks. Several of them mentioned Justin. Rumor has it that Stella could advance so smoothly because her rich second-generation boyfriend was crazily voting for her behind the scenes. I've also heard that her boyfriend's surname seems to be Pei. His family is newly rich, and they are childhood sweethearts, according to insiders. This rich second-generation surnamed Pei likes Stella very much. Someone took pictures of them kissing. I clicked on the photo under that comment. Under the street lamp, the girl wrapped her arms around the boy's body, stood on tiptoe initiatively, and kissed the boy. Although the pixels were blurry, I knew that the boy in the photo was Justin because they were standing downstairs at Justin's house. Below the kissing photo of Justin and Stella, many netizens sent their blessings one after another. So sweet, so sweet. The boy who can be liked by Stella must be very handsome. They are a perfect match. Our Stella is so innocent and lovely. She must be extremely happy. However, what I didn't know was that on Justin's side, at this time, he was lying lazily on the sofa in the private room. One of his buddies was drunk and had one foot on the coffee table in the KTV private room, reading each comment passionately. Everyone in the room was amused and burst out laughing. Someone joked with Justin, "Justin, are you and Stella for real?" Justin stubbed out a cigarette in the wine glass and chuckled. Everyone was drunk that night and couldn't control themselves. But it was just a kiss. Who knew we were so unlucky to be photographed by paparazzi? I thought so. Justin and Stella have known each other for over 10 years. If there was going to be something between them, it would have happened long ago. It wouldn't have been delayed until now. But Justin, with this kissing photo being spread wildly on the internet, aren't you afraid that Evelyn will see it? Justin leaned back on the sofa, looking drunk. It's better if she sees it. Let her know that if she doesn't come back soon, I'll find someone else. She really thought that getting engaged could tie me down. Heh, am I, Justin, someone that Evelyn can control? Someone shouted, that's right. She dared to make such a fuss with Justin before marriage. If we really got married, she would be out of control. Justin crossed his legs and held a cigarette in the corner of his mouth. She's just an adopted daughter, yet she really thinks highly of herself. Just wait. After Evelyn sees this photo, she'll immediately come back obediently. 3 days later, on the day of Maverick's son's equestrian competition, we got definite news that Maverick was going to have the final negotiation with the rival company. If an agreement was reached, the contract would be signed on the spot. So Ryan and I decided to split up. I went to the competition venue to find Mrs. Maverick. Ryan went to the negotiation side to delay the time as much as possible. This was our last chance. I pretended to be a staff member and sneaked into the waiting area of the competition, looking for people from one private room to another. From a distance, I heard a mother and son arguing. When I got closer and looked through the crack of the door, it was indeed Mrs. Maverick because I had seen her photo before. I got the general idea of their argument. Maverick's son didn't like equestrianism and asked to drop this course after this competition. However, Mrs. Maverick thought that equestrianism was a compulsory course for rich kids. The two of them were arguing fiercely. Taking advantage of the moment when Mrs. Maverick answered a phone call, Maverick's son ran out of the lounge angrily. I watched him run away and wanted to remind Mrs. Maverick, but then I saw her on the balcony. Worried that something might happen to Maverick's son, I could only follow him first. But still missed his elevator. When I rushed out in a hurry, I saw Maverick's son standing by the roadside, staring at a motorcycle speeding towards him. Don't. It was too late for me to stop him. Seeing Maverick's son rush onto the road, the motorcycle braked urgently. Out of the instinct to save people, I rushed over like crazy. At the moment when the motorcycle was about to hit Maverick's son, I grabbed his arm and pulled him away from the wheels. Holding him, we both fell heavily to the ground. My knees immediately felt a burning pain. Xiaojia! Mrs. Maverick screamed and rushed over, hugging her son tightly in her arms, with a sobbing voice. You scared Mom to death. The staff members who came with Mrs. Maverick helped me up from the ground. Mrs. Maverick kept thanking me and insisted on taking me to the hospital. After getting the knee injury treated, when I came out of the consulting room, Ryan was waiting at the door. After seeing with his own eyes that I was safe, Ryan visibly relaxed. Without hesitation, he rushed forward and hugged me tightly in his arms, with a heavy nasal voice. Don't do such dangerous things again in the future. For me, nothing is more important than you. I was startled by Ryan's sudden move. But soon, a warm current welled up in my heart. A feeling of being cherished and loved spread. Cough cough, someone coughed softly behind me. I quickly pushed Ryan away. Turning around, I saw the Maverick family of 3 standing there. For an old hand like Maverick who had been in the business world for a long time, he could tell at a glance that my motives for approaching his wife and son were not pure. So I didn't plan to hide it, but still wanted to explain that saving people was an instinct and had nothing to do with work. But just as I was about to speak, Maverick waved his hand with a faint smile. Miss Xiang, you don't need to say anything. I understand. He asked his son to thank me and also said, I believe Miss Xiang must have been kind-hearted when saving Xiaojia. You are the benefactor of our whole family. Maverick looked at Ryan beside me, and his smile grew even wider. Your working style is really similar to that of President Ryan. I was confused. It was Maverick who explained that in order to get a chance to communicate with him face to face, Ryan drove to intercept him on the road and almost had a car accident. But fortunately, everything turned out all right in the end. And this unexpected yet fortunate incident brought us good news. Maverick was very satisfied with the new plan we made. He promised to give us a fair chance to compete. When we parted at the hospital entrance, Mrs. Maverick hugged me. She said that today's incident had a great impact on her and that she would seriously reflect on her parenting style and no longer force her child. She also quietly told me that when Ryan got the news and rushed to the hospital, his legs were weak. Miss Young, President Ryan really likes you. I sincerely wish you two well. After seeing the Maverick family of 3 off, I punched Ryan in the chest and said with lingering fear, "Are you crazy? Why did you go drag racing?" He seemed to enjoy being punched and smiled instead of getting angry. "Are you concerned about me? Rascal." I turned around and limped towards the parking lot. Suddenly, my feet left the ground. Ryan picked me up from behind suddenly, attracting the attention of passers-by. I struggled in his arms. "I just hurt my leg, not broke it. Put me down quickly. I can walk by myself." "Nope." Ryan's embrace was warm and powerful. He carried me forward as if there was no one else around. I slightly raised my head. The sunlight happened to be on Ryan's head, as if putting a bright halo on him. The light outlined his angular face, and his high nose bridge cast a faint shadow. Suddenly, he looked down and our eyes met. It felt like an electric current passed through my heart. I couldn't help swallowing. "Why did you do such a dangerous thing like drag racing?" Ryan's deep eyes were full of tenderness and determination, and his hair glistened with a golden light in the sunlight. "Because in this deadlock, you bet on me to win. I will never let you lose." The negotiation with Maverick went very smoothly. He finally decided to cooperate with us and agreed to officially sign the contract in 2 weeks. When seeing him off at the company, Maverick also said that his wife invited me to visit their home. I promised to go when I was free. After seeing Maverick and his group leave, I turned around and walked into the company building. Unexpectedly, I received a call from Stella. She called me from a new number. "Sister Evelyn, do you have time to chat? I have nothing to say to you. But I'm already at the entrance of your company. My car is parked across the street." I turned around, and there was indeed a black Alfa parked across the street. The car window was rolled down, revealing Stella's delicate face. She waved at me and said with a smile, "If Sister Evelyn doesn't have time now, I'll go upstairs in the company and wait for you. But you know, my current status as a star is inconvenient. If I go to the company, it will definitely cause a stir." I clenched the phone tightly and took a deep breath. "There's a coffee shop on your left. Let's go there." In the coffee shop, the retro chandelier emitted a dim yellow halo, which set off the art paintings on the wall. Stella and I sat face to face. She took off her sunglasses and put them on the table. She didn't act coquettishly or cutely anymore. "Long time no see, Sister Evelyn. I happened to come here to shoot an advertisement and dropped by to see you." I knew she didn't have good intentions. "Don't beat around the bush. Just say what you want to say." Stella looked me up and down. "Sister Evelyn looks in good spirits. Obviously, you're living a good life here and have developed a new relationship." When Ryan was mentioned, my hand resting on my knee clenched slightly. "But Sister Evelyn, Justin isn't doing well. He's lost a lot of weight. Although he doesn't admit it, I know he's thinking of you in his heart. Because he was drunk that night and subconsciously called your name." To comfort him, I took the initiative to kiss him. After confirming that Stella's purpose of this visit was because of Justin, not targeting Ryan, I loosened my clenched hand a little. There was already a thin layer of sweat in my palm. After carefully recalling the content of the Weibo hot search and those numerous trolls in the comment section, I came to a conclusion. "You set up Justin. The kissing photo on the internet was deliberately taken by you asking paparazzi to do it, for the sake of hype and for your popularity on the show. Perhaps it was also to take advantage of the opportunity and completely win Justin over." Stella didn't deny it. Her look at me was both proud and provocative. "Sister Evelyn, whether you admit it or not, Justin likes me. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been ambiguous with me for so many years. After all, you're the one who took someone else's place, relying on the arranged childhood marriage and the love of Justin's family for you. You occupied Justin. Otherwise, he would have been with me long ago. Among the three of us, if there has to be a third party, it's you, although I still can't figure out what Stella is plotting in her mind at present. I'm quite sure that she's deliberately trying to irritate me. So I simply played along with her. I picked up the coffee on the table and splashed it all over her face. You like picking up trash so much. No wonder you two are two of a kind. After saying that, I turned around and walked away. In the afternoon of the next day, a video of me splashing coffee on Stella in the coffee shop was exposed online. The video was just this short clip, and the original sound couldn't be heard. A large number of paid posters flooded into the comment section. I know this woman. Her name is Evelyn. She's the ex-girlfriend of Stella's boyfriend. She must be so jealous that she's gone crazy because she can't bear to see Stella living a happy life. Woo-woo, Stella is so pitiful. She endured it silently even after having coffee splashed on her. I feel so sorry for her. Hashtag feeling sorry for Stella. Hashtag Evelyn, the vicious old woman. Hashtag. These two hot search topics dominated the rankings directly and were both marked with the dark red word explosive. I scrolled down to look at more hot search topics. It turned out that Stella was going to participate in the finals next week. And I finally understood what she was up to. Firstly, she wanted to use me to create momentum for herself. While attracting attention, she could also make everyone sympathize with her and establish a tragic persona. Secondly, she wanted Justin to see the vicious side of me through this incident and completely despise me so that she could take the opportunity to replace me. And Justin really didn't let her down. He called me using someone else's phone, with a harsh tone. Evelyn, if you're angry, come at me. Stella is innocent. Why did you hurt her? She's a female star now and relies on her looks to make a living. You even splashed coffee on her. How could you be so malicious? I listened calmly, but couldn't help laughing. Justin, you're not only a scumbag but also stupid. You don't even realize that you're being used as a tool by others. How pathetic. After hanging up on Justin's call, I didn't answer any strange numbers calling from within the country. As night fell and the street lights came on, I was sitting alone on the balcony enjoying the evening breeze. If Ryan hadn't been on a business trip, I would have wanted to go to him immediately. I repeatedly turned on the screen of my phone, wanting to call Ryan, but was afraid of disturbing his work. But in the next second, his name lit up on the screen. I immediately answered the call, suppressing the excitement in my heart and keeping my voice calm. Have you finished dealing with your work? Yeah. He asked considerately. I saw the video online. Do you need any help? I rubbed my forehead and chuckled. Am I that useless in your eyes? Do I still need your help for such a trifle? Hearing that my voice was unhurried, Ryan laughed a few times on the other end of the phone. I looked up and stared at the night view in the distance. The outlines of high-rise buildings were faintly visible in the night. Evelyn. Huh? Ryan's voice was very soft and low. I miss you. My heart skipped a beat, like a gentle breeze blowing across a quiet lake. With the receiver pressed tightly to my ear, after a short pause, I said softly, I also miss someone like this for the first time. I miss you so much that I can't fall asleep all night. Listening to the ticking of the clock, I'm counting down second by second. There are still 49 hours, 2,940 minutes, and 176,400 seconds left. Then I'll be able to see Ryan. Actually, he's only been on a business trip for one day. So this is what it feels like when one day apart seems like 3 years, a tormenting yet sweet feeling. I patiently waited for another day. When the Stella incident had reached its peak online, I anonymously sent an email to the media. It included the audio I had recorded with my mobile phone in the coffee shop that day and the engagement invitation between me and Justin. It proved that Stella was the one who had been the third party all along. To defeat your enemy, you have to go for the kill. This is what Ryan taught me. Stella probably didn't expect that I had been on guard against her long ago. So before I entered the coffee shop, I had already put my mobile phone with the recording function turned on in my pocket. However, before the audio could be exposed, my address was posted online by netizens. The media blocked me at the entrance of my apartment. Even though I had disguised myself, I was still recognized. "It's Evelyn!" someone shouted, and then everyone rushed towards me. Countless flashes were pointed at me, making it almost impossible for me to open my eyes. Suddenly, a man wearing a mask rushed out of the crowd, beat this vicious old woman Evelyn to death and avenged Stella. The scene became even more chaotic. The man threw an egg at me fiercely. I didn't have time to dodge. It was Ryan who showed up in time. He held me tightly in his arms, blocking all the malice and harm outside. The security guards of the apartment followed closely and blocked the swarming media. In the panic, Ryan grasped my hand tightly and led me away from the scene. Ryan was covered in egg liquid. So he had to take me to his home first. This was the first time I had come to his place. The living room was spacious and bright, with light gray marble on the floor. There was a huge floor-to-ceiling window, and the sunlight shone through the glass, bringing warmth and vitality to the whole room. Beside the curtain was a white computer desk. The computer screen was on. The desktop was covered with various documents. But my gaze was quickly attracted by the photo on the table. I walked closer, picked up the mahogany photo frame, and the photo inside was of me winning the championship in that debate competition. In the photo, I was holding the trophy, with a silly and sweet smile on my face, but not looking directly at the camera. The angle looked more like it was taken secretly. So, did Ryan take this photo secretly back then? Has he liked me since then? Ryan had already changed his clothes without my noticing and quietly came up behind me and hugged me. He saw through my thoughts at a glance and smiled gently as he said, "On the night of the freshman welcome party, you were wearing a white dress and a light yellow hairband, standing quietly under the spotlight on the stage singing. That was the first time I saw you." He gently rested his chin on my shoulder, and his breath was warm and gentle. "I fell in love with you at first sight." My heart seemed to skip a beat. A warm and intense emotion flooded over me like a tide. Ryan turned me around in his arms and pressed his forehead against mine and said, "You don't know how happy I was when I saw you in the finance club." At that time, I was thinking that I could finally see the girl I liked often. My eyes became moist. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Ryan's tone was tinged with bitterness. "Because I inquired about your relationship with the Justin family and also knew about your affairs with Justin. So I chose to hide this feeling in my heart. Later, I didn't expect that you would apply for a job in the company. I thought it was an opportunity given by God, so I asked the HR department to hire you and keep you by my side. I felt like I was a peeping Tom, peeping at the emotional developments between you and Justin, always waiting for an opportunity to snatch you away from him." He slowly inserted his index finger into my palm and intertwined his fingers with mine. Unexpectedly, I really got the chance. I was amused by the word "got." Ryan cupped my face and his fingertip gently stroked my lips. I looked into his reddish eyes feeling both shy and expectant. Ryan lowered his head and kissed me, his tongue slipping into my teeth. The kiss grew deeper and more intense irresistibly. His breath filled my nose and mouth. From body to heart, I was completely defenseless and let him do whatever he wanted. In the evening, as expected, the media exposed the audio conversation between me and Stella and that engagement invitation. The impact was far greater than the video of Stella having coffee splashed on her. The attitudes of netizens reversed instantly. The variety show removed Stella from the final list. With her persona collapsing and being cursed by the whole internet, Stella finally experienced the feeling of falling from heaven to hell. That night, I didn't answer dozens of calls from within the country. Because I guessed that they were from Justin. However, what I didn't expect was that he would fly here specifically to find me. On the night of the second day after the incident, downstairs in my apartment, I saw Justin, whom I hadn't seen for a long time. He really had lost weight, as Stella had said. "Evelyn." Justin quickly walked towards me trying to hold my hand. I dodged in disgust. I've heard the audio online. I really didn't expect Stella to be that kind of person. I was also deceived by her hypocritical side before, so I treated you like that. This was the first time he talked to me without that superior attitude. Evelyn, I misunderstood you. I apologize to you. We've been in a cold war for so long. Now that you've had enough of making a fuss, come back with me, okay? Let's get married. I agree to marry you. Until today, Justin still thought that I was just throwing a tantrum. He tried to approach me again and hug me. I stopped him sharply. Get away. Justin was stunned. He didn't expect me to treat him like this. I sneered. Justin, don't make yourself seem so innocent. You and Stella are just as bad as each other. You hated me because of the arranged engagement, but you didn't admit that you were dependent on me. You clearly didn't like Stella that much, but you enjoyed being ambiguous with her. You took advantage of my inferiority complex of living under someone else's roof and were sure that I wouldn't and didn't dare to go against the wishes of Justin's mother, so you hurt me recklessly time and time again. Justin, you knew everything clearly, yet you did all those things. These words had been pent up in my heart for a long time. Even after so many years, it still hurt when I mentioned them. It's not like that, Evelyn. Justin suddenly panicked. I didn't know what love was before. I thought I didn't love you. Until this time when you broke up with me and left without a word, I realized that I might have fallen in love with you unconsciously long ago. But you know, I'm always proud. Besides, it was always you who took the initiative to talk to me over the years, so I always thought you would come back. Justin became more and more excited. This was the first time I saw his eyes turn red since Justin's mother passed away. I admit that I was wrong about the Stella incident. But actually, I spent money on voting for her and let the news that we were in a relationship spread online, all to make you angry. Who told you to leave with another man in front of me? I just wanted to use such means to force you back to my side. Evelyn, I'm just used to being proud and don't know how to lower my head. Please believe me, okay? The person I like is you. The evening breeze blew by my ears and my hair fluttered in the air. I shook my head with a wry smile. No, Justin, you only love yourself. But now I want to thank you. It was your cruelty that made me determined to leave. It made me realize belatedly that I don't actually love you. From childhood to adulthood, I took care of you, accommodated you, and even got engaged to you. These were all due to the circumstances. I had always convinced myself to love you to repay the kindness of Justin's father and mother for raising me, but that wasn't from the bottom of my heart. Justin refused to accept what I said. He shook his head excitedly. It's not like that. No. Evelyn, you're still angry with me, right? You deliberately said such harsh words to provoke me, didn't you? In fact, before tonight, I also thought that I hated Justin. But now I realize that without love, how could there be hate? The fact that I could face him so calmly proved that I had already seen my own heart clearly and had already let go of the past long ago. On the contrary, it was Justin who couldn't accept it now. As soon as I thought of Ryan, my heart softened and my tone became gentle. Justin, do you know what it's like to toss and turn at night, missing someone terribly? Do you know what it's like to count down the time, waiting to see the person you like? I've never had these feelings with you. In the end, I smiled with relief. Justin, please leave and don't come again in the future. My eyes unconsciously looked behind Justin. Ryan came back from the supermarket carrying a bag of vegetables in his hand. Justin sensed that something was wrong and couldn't help but turn around to look in the direction of my line of sight. Ryan slowed down his pace and was also looking in this direction. My boyfriend is very jealous. I don't want to make him misunderstand, nor do I want to make him sad for no reason. So, Justin, let's not meet again. After saying that, I didn't hesitate to run towards Ryan. Ryan stretched out his arm and naturally hugged me into his arms. At the same time, his eyes were fixed tightly on Justin, with a hint of disdain in his eyes. I leaned against his chest, rubbing my stomach and shouting that I was hungry. Ryan, will you cook sweet and sour spare ribs for me tonight? He smiled and rubbed the top of my head. Okay. I took Ryan's arm and walked towards the apartment gate, chatting and laughing with him. From beginning to end, I didn't look at Justin again. Naturally, I didn't know that his fists were clenched tightly and his whole body was trembling. After having dinner and taking a bath, when I went to draw the curtains, I found that Justin had been standing downstairs and hadn't left. He was looking up, and when he seemed to see me standing by the window, he excitedly took 2 steps forward. But in the next second, Ryan hugged me from behind, buried his face in my neck, and asked, "What are you looking at so intently?" "Justin is downstairs." His kisses stopped, and he raised his eyes to glance out of the window. He silently lifted the corners of his lips. "Since there's an audience, we have to work harder." Ryan suddenly exerted force with both hands and lifted me up. My back hit the floor-to-ceiling window, and my heart almost jumped out of my chest. His hot tongue rushed in, and he kissed me out of control. The root of my tongue was numbed by his sucking, and my body went limp. "Don't." But Ryan seemed to be possessed by possessiveness. "Let him watch." After kissing for a long while, he put me down, pressed the back of my head with his palm, and my neck fell into his fierce kisses. It wasn't until the figure downstairs disappeared that I was carried into the bedroom by Ryan and thrown onto the bed. The soft mattress made a buzz sound beside my ear. Ryan directly pressed on top of me. My nightdress was already in a mess and didn't cover anything. His lips lingered repeatedly on the delicate part of my neck, along with the exposed collarbone. The moment Ryan entered, my eyes turned red with pain, and my whole body was trembling. He stopped immediately, circled me in his arms with both heartache and surprise. "Is it your first time?" I bit my lip tightly, and my voice had a nasal tone. "Yes." Although Justin and I had an arranged marriage since childhood, there was no intimate contact between us. Strictly speaking, the time that Justin and I got along as a boyfriend and girlfriend was only a little over 2 years, and he was mostly in a wheelchair. Even after he recovered later, he never touched me. Ryan slowed down his movements, and his voice became hoarse. "I'll be gentle. If it hurts, tell me, and we can stop at any time." I hugged his neck tightly, buried my face deeply in his neck, and nodded shyly. That night was extremely long. Several times, Ryan took me to cloud 9. I was aching all over. Finally, I fell asleep tiredly in his arms. I thought that after what happened that night, Justin wouldn't come again. However, in the following half a month, he stood guard downstairs every night, but he seemed to have changed. He became much more calm. He didn't disturb me. He just quietly stood downstairs, regardless of wind or rain. I also just pretended that I didn't see Justin and continued my life as usual. Ryan went on a business trip again. I didn't go with him because I had to deal with the work related to Maverick. When it was time to get off work, there was a heavy rainstorm. I took a taxi home. On the street, the wheels of the car splashed sheets of water. The raindrops crackled on the car window, converging into winding streams of water, blurring the scene outside the window. The taxi stopped downstairs of my apartment. I got off with my computer bag. Stella's sudden appearance was completely unexpected. "Evelyn." I turned around. I saw Stella standing in the heavy rain, tightly clutching a sharp knife in her hand, glaring at me with hatred on her face. "It's all because of you. You've ruined everything for me. Even Justin won't see me now. I'm like a rat crossing the street, being shouted at by everyone. You must be very happy and proud." Her wet hair was messily stuck to her face, and hatred had made her lose her reason. "If you want to force me to death, then I'll take you to hell with me." She stomped heavily on the rain-soaked ground, raised the knife, and rushed towards me like a madwoman. I turned around to run, but bumped into Justin's arms. The moment he hugged me, he suddenly turned around. The knife in Stella's hand stabbed deeply into Justin's body, and blood gushed out instantly. The heavy rain poured down crazily. I watched helplessly as Justin fell down bit by bit in pain. The rain kept washing away the blood on his body, dyeing the surrounding ground into a shocking red. Stella was also stunned. The knife in her hand slipped and fell to the ground with a clang. "Pay, Justin." Stella slowly slumped to the ground, her hands trembling as she wanted to hold Justin but didn't dare to. "No, I didn't mean to hurt you. I just." Stella was incoherent, as if she had been greatly stimulated. She suddenly stood up from the ground and ran away like a madman. While running, she shouted hoarsely, "I've killed someone. I've killed someone." Her voice sounded so shrill in the heavy rain. Justin's eyes were always fixed tightly on me. His blood-stained hand trembled as it reached out to me. I came to my senses from the panic, took out my phone with shaking hands to call an ambulance. I tried to use my hands to block the bleeding hole on Justin's body, but there was so much blood that I couldn't stop it no matter what. "Justin, hold on. The ambulance will be here soon." However, Justin tightly grasped my hand, and tears gushed out like a flood breaking through a dam. "Evelyn, I've thought a lot during this period. Every word you said that night was like a knife cutting my heart. I really want to go back to the past. If I were given a chance to start over, I would definitely cherish you." His voice was gasping heavily, intermittently, almost unable to form a complete sentence, but he still struggled to say with his last breath, "Evelyn, I'm sorry. Can you forgive me?" His face was as pale as paper, and his breath was getting weaker and weaker. The look in his eyes when he looked at me was so eager. Eager to know the answer from me. I looked at the despair in Justin's eyes, and my heart was filled with mixed feelings. His voice was so weak that it was almost inaudible, and every word seemed to have used up his last bit of strength. "Are you still unwilling to forgive me?" Justin's eyes began to lose focus. He struggled to raise his hand, wanting to touch my face. But that hand dropped powerless in midair. He didn't hear the answer he wanted until he closed his eyes. In the hospital corridor, the lights were pale and cold, and it was so quiet that you could almost hear the sound of air flowing. The knife that Stella stabbed from behind pierced Justin's heart. The doctor announced that the patient had died and asked me to notify the immediate family members to handle the aftermath. I sat quietly on the bench in the corridor, with dried blood on my body and hands. I couldn't remember how many times I had picked up the phone. I dialed Justin's father's number with trembling hands. Listening to Justin's father's suppressed crying on the other end of the phone, I bit my lip tightly and couldn't help crying either. Justin's ashes were brought back to China by his father. The funeral was very simple. I had been accompanying Justin's father all the time. Ryan was afraid of stimulating Justin's father, so he followed me silently throughout the whole process and didn't show up. On the day Justin was buried, Justin's father seemed to have aged 10 years overnight, and his hair turned white. When the crowd dispersed and only Justin's father and I were left, he leaned against Justin's tombstone and cried like a child. I watched beside him, crying silently. I remembered when I was a child, Justin's father would always bring 2 strings of candied haws when he came back from work. Justin would always finish eating his first and then snatch mine. Whenever this happened, Justin's father would take out a white rabbit toffee from his pocket and secretly give it to me. Then he would stroke my head and say, "In the future, if Evelyn is wronged, tell Justin's father. Don't keep it to yourself. Justin's father will always be your backer." At that time, I thought that Justin's father's back was like a high mountain. But now, looking at Justin's father's lonely figure, I wondered when exactly his back had hunched and his waist could no longer straighten. These days, I often thought that if I hadn't pushed Stella to a dead end, she wouldn't have gone so crazy and Justin wouldn't have died. Justin's father wouldn't have to bear the pain of losing his child while still alive. Had I really done something wrong? Justin's father gradually calmed down, sitting blankly beside the tombstone, with empty eyes and not saying a word. I felt sorry for him. The feeling of self-blame reached its peak at this moment. Finally, I couldn't help but throw myself into his arms, constantly apologizing. But Justin's father didn't blame me and even comforted me. "Evelyn, it's not your fault. Over the years, you've endured enough grievances for Justin. Justin's father knows that you don't have a sense of security, that you're afraid of disappointing Justin's mother, and that you're afraid of losing this family. So you've tried your best to make everyone in the family satisfied with you, no matter how much grievance you've endured. As a mother, Justin's mother was selfish. She wanted to tie such a good you to Justin's side. However, Evelyn, life should be your own. Since the moment you decided to break up with Justin, you shouldn't look back. You should bravely move forward. Justin's father wiped the tears off my face. His gaze looked into the distance in the direction behind me. I turned my head. I saw Ryan standing 10 meters away, dressed in a black suit. Justin's father patted my shoulder and said earnestly, "Actually, I've seen that boy for a long time. During these days, he's been quietly following you. He looks mature and steady, much better than that brat Justin. He's a good match for you." Justin's father held my hands tightly. "Evelyn, from now on, Justin's father only has you as a child left. Promise Justin's father that you'll be fine." I couldn't stop my tears from flowing. My vision became a bit blurred, and I nodded vigorously. "I will, Justin's father. I'll always be your daughter." Stella was arrested by the police on the night she tried to escape. What awaits her will be the punishment of the law. I think that for someone like her who is desperately trying to climb up the social ladder, she will be trapped in prison for the rest of her life, having to watch others' faces, be wasted by others, and live a miserable and ignoble life. This will make her feel even more uncomfortable than death. 1 year later. Ryan and I chose to have a destination wedding. On the sandy beach with the blue sea and clear sky, the waves gently lapped at the shore, and we hugged each other tightly. In the ancient town, the bluestone paved roads winded and twisted, and we walked hand in hand. In the sea of flowers in the mountains, with the fragrance of flowers filling the air, we kissed each other freely. Another year passed. The AI project of Maverick Company was officially launched and achieved great success. Ryan earned 1 billion yuan for the company. Now he is not only a senior partner of the group but also the CEO of the entire China region. And I also founded my own studio and can handle things independently, for the rest of our lives. I am Mrs. Shen and also Evelyn.